Hello, happy Cancer season. Happy birthday to all my beautiful, sweetie baby, darling, crabby babies. I hope everybody is enjoying this gorgeous summertime and staying out of the heat because it is apocalyptically hot outside. Um, I have a wellness presentation for you today just for Cancer season, and I hope you enjoy it. Before we begin, I'm Dr. Cassandra. I studied allopathic hospital medicine and then went rogue, and I completely dedicate myself to natural and traditional modalities. It's matriarch medicine. It is the modalities that were passed down from our foremothers from generation to generation. And it just makes perfect sense to me. And I really find it so helpful and valuable. And above all things, it's this seasonal living. It's living within the cycles of our biosphere and appreciating the cycles also of the greater environment, which is why astrology is so important to my work. So I hope you will enjoy my ode to this wonderful sign that is associated with motherhood and caregiving and nurturing. So here we go. All right. Well, Cancer season started at the end of June. The signs typically change around between the 20th and the 23rd of each month. And so this year, actually starting tomorrow, we have our full moon. It's in the sign of Capricorn. So Capricorn and Cancer are opposites, and we'll talk a little bit about their polarity in a bit, but the moon will be in in Capricorn from the 2nd until the 4th of July. And then the new moon, when the moon and the sun are in the same sign of Cancer, will be from the 15th to the 17th. And it's a really powerful lunation this year. And yeah, as I said, we'll talk about that in a little bit. The ruler of Cancer is the moon, right? So this makes this a very potent and powerful time to work with moon energy for manifestation and to set intentions and that kind of thing. The moon is in its home sign right now. And as I mentioned before, the polarity is Capricorn, and a lot of people see these as the mother and the father, but Capricorn is a feminine sign. And I think that Capricorn and Libra really remind us about how off some of our gender references are in modern society. But yeah, Capricorn is a feminine sign. And so I like to see it as the summer mother and the winter mother. The summer mother keeps us out of the harshest rays of the sun and makes, beautiful nostalgic memories with us. And we enjoy this time of tranquility and freedom, typically, taking a few days to spend by the water and to refresh. And then that winter mother, really prepares for the harsh winter, and focuses on the achievement, the reserves, the organizing, delegating, prioritizing everything for survival. But then there's this generosity there, like nobody really puts Christmas together like mom, right? So it is this is why I see it as the winter mother and the summer mother. So the duality again is feminine, and the element is water, and water is emotional, and Cancer has kind of this reputation for being emotional, but there is a something I heard recently was that the water element was about control, because water is boundless, because water is just like out of control. Well, that's what Cancer does, is it like reins it in. And again, with this matriarch, um, archetype and the symbol of the mother and the nurturer, whatever someone's gender or sex may be. We all have these nurturing, nourishing leadership qualities that are a part of this sign, and each of us has this sign somewhere in our chart. Even if it's not occupied by a planet, it does very much color that aspect of life. So the anatomy that rules Cancer is the stomach and the breast. And if we think about, our first food in this lifetime, like the first things that entered our stomach, like after we were born, in a physiological setting, are going to be mother's milk, right? So there's that connection between the stomach and the breast, the mucosa, all of like the moist parts of the body, the uterus, the female reproductive hormones, and the endocrine portion of the liver. The liver does so many things, but one of the things that it does is regulate hormones and just kind of, it's a checkpoint. It also breaks down estrogens. So this sign has to do with all of those female cyclical reproductive hormones, which exist within all of us. So this is the hottest time of the year. And for some people, there's kind of a disconnect between this more like internalized sign, this like, sort of an emotional sign, like it's a sign that is not as visible as maybe some others. Or if you juxtapose it with Leo, right? Leo is so out there and it's so visible. And then Cancer is more reserved, but this is truly the hottest time of the year, this summer solstice, and we have to protect ourselves, right? And we think about crabs, the archetype, the symbol for this sign, and they spend most of their time under the sand, and they come out in the crepuscular hours, and they have the shell to protect them too. And just like, when I was living in Cuba, and especially when I would go out in the country and spend time with older folks, I saw that people don't mess around with the hottest time of day during summer. You do some work early in the day and later in the afternoon when it cools off. But during these hottest hours, it's a really good time to have some lunch and then, have a rest, stay indoors, stay out of that harsh heat. So that's something I think that is very symbolic for this sign. It's also a really great time for family to create these memories and these beautiful experiences, things to look back on. And the moon, which rules Cancer, is also associated with memory. And those of us who are mothers know that, like, we create memories. That's part of what we do, is we create, we put effort into creating wonderful memories for our families and for the collective. And those of us, even if, we don't have our own biological children, those of us who take like a more, a role of the nurturer or of the matriarch, or, this like a gentle leadership role in our chosen communities. Also, a lot of this revolves around food and around making memories and around, just putting in a little bit of extra effort and emotional intention into what we do for others. So that's really this time of year, and it's a lovely example of that. And as I mentioned before, this is also a great time of year to like cool down and to spend time near water. So it goes along with that water element and with the symbol of the crab. The Cancer qualities. So as I mentioned before, it is a nurturing, nourishing sign. It's a creative sign. It's life-giving. It's reflective. It can be very sentimental, very emotional, and it can also be reserved. It's also the sign that represents the home. And so you're either inside the home or you're outside the home. And that's true for Cancer people. You're either one of us or you're out there. And if you've ever been on the outs with a Cancer person, then you know what I'm talking about. They can get pretty salty. It's also, the crab moves sideways. And those of us who either have children or who work with folks on a level that's not exactly egalitarian or equal, or, people of different ages or teachers or this kind of thing, you can't always approach things head on. This is a place of equality. Approaching things head on is when you can see eye to eye. But if you're trying to lead someone who is not at your level of understanding, you have to sometimes circumnavigate that. So Cancer does have this reputation for like passive aggression or for approaching things indirectly. And also, with this sign of either being in or out, sometimes some of us fear that approaching things directly could leave us outside of our comfort zone, or could push us away from the security and the safety and the acceptance of our loved ones. So there's all that in there too. And yeah, with respect to water and control, Cancer would be the most controlling of the water signs. Pisces would be the most boundless, in free form, with giving up control. And then Scorpio is scanning constantly, like reading the room to see, like, to measure and determine power, right, or control. So, but definitely Cancer, even though it's a soft power, it is the most controlling. And then we see this in this metaphor for the mother. You've got to have things under control for everybody's peace and safety. But of course, there's always balance. So working with Cancer energy, it's really important this time of year to stay cool, to stay hydrated. I just had this example myself yesterday. Nobody is beyond rehydration. Nobody is beyond, like the physiological existence that we all find ourselves in. So just remember, if you've got to buy like a big water bottle, sometimes it helps to get a water bottle that you like, and something new to remind you to drink more water. So super imperative, and no one is exempt. So try to stay in the shade. We all know this. These are like basic things: staying in the shade in the hottest time of day, making sure you're super hydrated. But then also making the time for things. Like, don't overwork during the summer. That is not the time to push yourself. Now is the time to rest and relax, spending time with family, spending time with loved ones, making memories, like making occasions, and living in balance. We want to also avoid stagnation. Like, don't retreat so much. Because again, Cancer can get a little emo. So don't retreat so much to the point of stagnation either. Like, keep it moving. And I feel like those emotional connections are a really, really important piece to this. So living within the lunar cycles too is really going to help us with that. Like during the full moon, we want to be seen, right? That's really the time to like go out and be seen, and then save the retreating and the more like internal times for the new moon. And this is also how traditionally we would menstruate. Like the menstrual cycle follows the lunar cycle. And traditionally, women would menstruate during the new moon and ovulate during the full moon. So what's the biological imperative to like want to go out and be seen during the new moon? Because like that's how you get pregnant, not by yourself, not inside. And then the biological imperative for staying in during the new moon is resting and relaxing so that your body can do its thing. So a really wonderful supplementation to this. Most of us are not, a lot of us now are not menstruating with the lunar cycles. But if you would like to try to get back to that, or if you're somebody who has entered menopause and you're no longer menstruating, you can still live by lunar cycles. And if you're somebody who has never menstruated and that's not what your body does, it is still beneficial to live according to lunar cycles. That's just how our societies have done it for eons, and it's only very recently that we've broken away from this or become disconnected from this or have been prevented from living in these ways. So seed cycling I really love because it creates there's 4 seeds. You take 2 during the first 2 weeks of the month and the other 2 during the second 2 weeks of the month. And each of them contain the precursors for estrogen and progesterone, right? So what you'll do is during the new moon, or the first day of menstruation, you take a teaspoon each of flax and pumpkin. You can put those in a coffee grinder, sprinkle them in a smoothie, like put them on your breakfast. Like I like a nice avocado toast with some, some seedy avocado toast, and like just a little spoonful of each one. And ground is better because you have more access to those oils, and those fatty acids. You don't want to buy them pre-ground because they denature and they lose their potency. So flax and pumpkin for the first 14 days, and then sesame and sunflower for the second 2 weeks. So I like to think of second sesame, sunflower, and then the first half is flax. So first flax and then pumpkin, and then you can say flumpkin, and that makes it fun and easier to remember. So and then finally, before we move away from this section, I really want to emphasize the importance of recognizing motherhood as a vulnerable time and population, especially in a patriarchal, capitalistic world that does not value the essential work inherent to motherhood. It is the infrastructure to our society. It is the very foundation upon which all of us are made, are these early years spent in our home and with our caregivers. So, and caregivers in general are a vulnerable population in these societies and need support. And especially over the last few years, where we've seen the landscape of education change, and health services and childcare services change, these are vulnerable. Caregivers are a vulnerable population, and they need support, and they need care, and they need community. And by they, I mean we, because myself included. All right. So now let's look at natural allies, those plants and flowers and foods and even minerals and crystals that align with this energy and really enhance it. The very first one on here is papaya. And I love this. Like, papaya is so connected to the female reproductive system that as a medical student, we would practice certain procedures on papayas so that, we weren't learning them and like accidentally hurting somebody's uterus. It is very much akin to the uterus. And in Cuban culture, we don't even say papaya because papaya means vagina. And so you say fruta bomba so that you're not scandalizing people at the market, right? And the seeds are actually really beneficial too. You can take those out, dehydrate them, and even use them as peppercorn. Really wonderful stuff. Melons are juicy. They're sweet. They're very refreshing, and they're wonderful to cool down during this time of year and to stay hydrated. Ginger is really great for those of us that have maybe weak digestion. And again, cancer rules the stomach. So we want to make sure that nutrition, that digestion, that assimilation and absorption is optimal. And ginger is, the best at that. Parsley too. We see parsley as a garnish, not just because it looks pretty and it makes things, colorful on our plates, but also because eating that will improve digestion. It will help digest, especially a heavy meal. Sage, bay leaves. Everybody cracks on bay leaves, but it's wonderful, wonderful food, wonderful medicine. You leave it in there, it can absorb all the flavors and all of the other phytocomponents and nutrients there. And then you make sure you don't eat it. You just take it out. For those who don't culturally use bay leaves, it's a wonderful addition, especially to soups and stews and sauces, and where it can sit and kind of marinate there. Aloe, we can see how healing it is, how it's great for burns, especially this time of year in the hot sun, but all the time, and how juicy it is, how wet it is, and how aqueous, and like that kapha quality, that watery, earthy quality that it has. It's so soothing, especially for burns and inflammation. Mm. Hibiscus is another wonderfully cooling flower, and the fruit. And you'll see, especially with a lot of, for instance, with Mexican cuisine that can tend to be spicy, you'll find a lot of like hibiscus agua fresca to cool that off. So this is a wonderfully cooling, and it's a diuretic too. So if there's too much stagnation and too much water buildup, it'll help flush that out as well. Rose. Rose is so wonderfully peaceful and calming, and really has this like caphagenic quality, this sweetness to it, and this wonderful fragrance. And it really is it's a fantastic ally for this time of year, and also this lunar energy. And even just having roses in the house can be uplifting and just cooling and soothing. A lot of people find, if left unchecked, even their tempers can flare during the summertime. And we'll see that there are more violent crimes in the summer. And so even just having flowers around, or, being able to take time to spend time in nature, is also like very soothing and very pacifying for the heat that tends to build up during this time of year. And as well, like jasmine, geranium, lilies, and then the lotus flower. All of these are associated with lunar energy, and that cool, sweet, pacifying qualities. As far as minerals and crystals and stones, you see, I've got a whole list here, starting with moonstone, of course. But one that I wanted to point out, rose quartz. Its association with the heart, which many of us are aware of, and with self-love. And when we're looking at this archetype of the nurturer, of the mother, of the matriarch, in a patriarchal society, so often, our contributions are undervalued or diminished, or even shunned and like looked down on. And rose quartz is really great at that, like self-love and valuing self. So if you're in this position where you're kind of overworking and not really feeling the value from that, or feeling valued for that, this is a really wonderful mineral to work with, a really wonderful crystal to work with, as far as rehabilitating self-love. Turquoise is great. Not only is it the color of the sea, but turquoise is really wonderful for direct communication and expression. And I find that very helpful for this Cancer energy, especially now that Mercury and the sun are together in Cancer. It's going to be really great, especially for those who don't necessarily feel confident or secure or safe to say things directly. This is a wonderful crystal to work with, or a wonderful stone to work with. And then finally, I wanted to give a special mention to pearl, because it's not a stone, it's not a crystal, but it is a precious element, and it's born through defensiveness. It's born through a very Cancerian experience, where something from the outside world enters the home, enters this closed space, and we have to get defensive about it, and we have to like work with it. And the oyster like works with this like invader, or this irritant, and create something beautiful. And there's a metaphor here. There's a metaphor for the not only being able to like the transmutation of a situation, but then also kind of like the beautiful transformational power of motherhood and of caregiving, and how, it's not always beautiful and it's not always glamorous and it can be hard. But, just giving of yourself turns it into something precious and beautiful, and magical. So, speaking of magic, let's talk about these moon cycles. And let me get this out of the way here. All right. So, we have this full moon coming up in just a couple of days. The exact time, I gave you the range before for when the moon was going to be in Capricorn, but the exact moment of the full moon is at 7:30 a.m. on July 3rd Eastern time. So we also, what the full moon does, and whenever the moon is in a certain sign, and whenever the sun is in a certain sign, they are going to highlight the regions of the body that are ruled by these signs. So for Capricorn, it's all the structures of the body, right? So here's Capricorn, our little sea goat, like always climbing, always achieving, like triathlon style. Like, what do I got to do? I'm going to do it, right? To just like get there, to achieve, and not just for them, but like for their people, right? So it's so this, by the way, having said all of that, this is a really wonderful time of year for like manifestation. You've got the achievement of Capricorn and the dedication of Cancer, and Cancer being like ruled by the moon. This is just the moon being at home. The moon loves to be at home, and like Cancer loves to be at home. So this is a really wonderful time to make things happen, especially with all the cardinal energy that we're going to be talking about. But so Capricorn, yeah, it's the structures of the body. So the integumentary system, that's the hair, nails, tendons, everything that you can make jello out of, because of that like strength. Like even like once that creature's gone and you've reduced it to dust, like these parts of the body like still will contain structure, right? Or still can give structure to things. So the skeleton, the joints, those are the parts of the body that are ruled by Capricorn. There's also something really interesting between Capricorn and Cancer in that each of them rules a different portion of the pituitary gland. So with with Capricorn, it's the posterior pituitary gland. And that's oxytocin and vasopressin. And that posterior pituitary gland is also mostly just like a bundle of nerves. Like it's a little chickpea organ. And the posterior portion is mostly just like nerves and sort of like feedbacks. And the anterior portion, which is ruled by Cancer, is all of like the female reproductive hormones, the menstrual hormones, growth hormones, thyroid. So all of these really important, but what it does is it's receptive, just like the moon, it's reflective. And just like the water and earth elements and the feminine elements, they're receptive, and it is doing something based on a signal it receives. So it's just, or like this, also this metaphor of the mother, like we hear a cry, we respond. So you're taking action based on a signal received, right? And these signals are received by the hypothalamus and also the posterior pituitary. So it's really beautiful how like these energies reflect across the body. And then the new moon, so those are the things that you're going to pay attention to in the full moon. And if you're setting intentions based on, if you have physical goals or wellness goals, now is a good time to work on maybe like strength training, right? Setting goals on strength training during this Capricorn time. And also, or taking better care of your skin, your joints, your hair, your nails, that kind of thing. So then, although we don't want to do any, we never want to operate right during a full or new moon. So if you have surgery, if you're able to choose the date, you definitely want to not choose the new or full moon, especially a moon in the sign of the body part that you're having worked on. Capricorn, just for the record, I don't think I listed it here, but also the gallbladder is part of Capricorn. So let's jump over to the new moon, which is in the middle of July. It's the 17th at 2:30 in the afternoon Eastern time. And then here again, the body parts that are ruled by Cancer are the chest, the breast, the uterus, the anterior pituitary, and the endocrine portion of the liver. So it's all of these like reproductive hormones, cyclical hormones, and things that are connected to the moon. And then what's interesting about this lunation in particular is that for the last year and a half, the ecliptic, the north and south nodes have been in Taurus and in Scorpio, respectively. And between this full moon and the upcoming new moon, they're going to shift. And then they're going to be in Aries and Libra, right? So we're going to have the sun, the moon, and the north and south nodes in a big cross, right? It's a grand cross and these cardinal signs, and cardinal signs take action. There is a leadership quality involved in these signs, and they're the ones who initiate things, right? They're the beginning of the season, right? Aries is the beginning of the spring, and Cancer is the summer solstice, so the beginning of the summer. The fall equinox is Libra, and the winter solstice is Capricorn. So these guys initiate processes. So it's a really wonderful time to initiate processes. And particularly with this new moon, if you're trying to initiate a process or healing, especially with your reproductive health, your sexual health, your breast, or your like just any female reproductive processes, this is a beautiful time to start that. It would be a beautiful time to sync up with the moon as far as trying to like get your menstruation there. It's a wonderful time to start vaginal steaming. And even again, for folks who don't menstruate, it's a really wonderful time it would be a fantastic time to start steaming if you don't already. So if you are looking for information on that or on any of these topics, I invite you to reach out. Again, I'm Dr. Cassandra, and here's where to find me. I wish you all a beautiful summer filled with happy memories. All right, take care. Bye-bye.